There are a lot of businesses in GTA Online and that number keeps on growing. So in this video, I'll be explaining every single one of them. So there are three types of businesses in the game: active businesses, passive businesses, and heist businesses. And we'll start off with the passive income businesses, starting with the bunker. The concept is just like any other business. You obtain supplies by either stealing them or buying them, and your staff convert those into product for you to sell and make money or research points. The first step to any business is of course buying it. So which one should you buy? Given the fact that there are 11 different locations, how do you know which one is the best in terms of saving you time and obviously making you more money? The further away it is from the main city, the harder it is going to be for you to complete the cell missions. The reason for this is because almost all of the bunker cell missions will require you to drive to a handful of different locations, all scattered across the map. And if you're like most people who decide to buy one of the cheapest locations at the top of the map, well, you're going to struggle massively when it comes to finally selling, especially with a full bunker, which is why I recommend buying any of these 8 locations away from the top of the map. Believe me, you want to avoid buying the cheapest. Although it is tempting, the cheapest does not always mean the best. However, I would highly recommend purchasing either the Chumash bunker or the farmhouse bunker. Although they are fairly pricey, the location makes up for it, giving you a huge advantage when it comes to both selling and sourcing. Once inside, go ahead and access your bunker's laptop. Here you can manage everything including staff. In this section you will see 3 different options. You can either assign staff to only manufacturing or only research, or even the option to have your staff do both. When you assign your staff to just research, this green bar is going to fill up as long as there is supplies in your bunker. However, if you want to make a lot of money, then assign the staff to just manufacturing, which will only ever fill up the stock level. If you decide to have your staff do both, then each bar is going to fill up, but much slower. So how do you actually get the supplies? There are 2 ways. The first is through stealing them. This will send you out on a 5 to 10 minute mission where, you guessed it, you steal supplies. And if you want to get a full bar of supplies, you would have to do 5 of these missions, which wastes a lot of time. So always buy them, which will cost you $75,000 for a full batch. This entire bar of supplies takes 1 hour and 40 minutes to run out, earning you $100,000. However, if you were to have a fully upgraded bunker, this would increase to $140,000. Only this time it would take 2 hours and 20 minutes to run out. But in terms of money making, the upgrades are very important. So what are they? Inside of the Buy Upgrades tab on your laptop, you can see 3 different upgrades. Equipment upgrade, which is $1.1 million, the staff upgrade, which is $600,000, and the security upgrade, which is $350,000. Go ahead and ignore that one. All that will do is lower the amount of times that your bunker gets raided. However, that happens so rarely that this upgrade is a massive waste of money, which isn't the case for the staff and equipment upgrades. Buying them both will cost you $1.75 million, but why do we need them? Without them, your bunker is going to earn you 40% less, as well as the supplies taking 40% longer to run out. So unfortunately, if you actually want to make more money with this business, you are going to need to buy these upgrades. If you do not have the money for those yet, it is worth running some heists or other activities until you do. Otherwise, it's a waste of time. With that in mind, the money breakdown that I go over next will be based on if you have both the staff and equipment upgrades. Like I mentioned earlier, each bar of supplies is going to cost $75,000, which takes 2 hours and 20 minutes to run out, which would normally earn you $140,000 if you didn't sell to Los Santos. But when you do, you will earn $210,000 instead. So always sell to Los Santos to make more money. However, we haven't taken into account the $75,000 that you spent on supplies, which means you get a total profit of $135,000, which again takes 2 hours and 20 minutes to produce, meaning you earn $57,000 profit per hour. And considering this is a fully passive business, that makes the bunker pretty awesome. But what about the sell missions? Like I said, always sell to Los Santos for more money. However, depending on how many people you are playing with, these missions can be very difficult to complete as a solo player. No matter what type of session you are in, certain sell missions cannot be completed within the time limit. For every bar and a half of stock that you have, a maximum of 1 sell vehicle is going to spawn. This will continue to go up towards the maximum number of vehicles, which is 4 for a full bar of stock. This full bar will earn you $1,140,000. Again, if you are a solo player, this can be near impossible to sell within the time limit, depending on the type of missions you get. If you get the Phantom Wedge, which is by far the best one to get, you will only ever have to deliver 1 vehicle, no matter how much stock you have, which anyone can easily do. Again, the monster trucks can be done solo, however, there is a 15-minute timer, which if you have 4 vehicles to deliver, that could be a close one. The dune buggies cannot be done solo, so instead find a new session. Although you will lose a bit of stock, it's nothing compared to if you failed the sell mission. Finally, you can get 2 types of insurgent missions. One will require you to deliver 5 crates per vehicle, and if you have 4 of them, that is also impossible for solo players. The best one to get is a single drop off per insurgent, which can easily be done. Let's now go over the high demand bonus. Whenever you are selling in a public session, you will get a 2% bonus for every player. However, this will stop at 50%, meaning there only has to be 25 players in a lobby for you to receive the full 50% bonus, meaning you could potentially earn $1.2 million for a full bunker. Always do this with friends, because the chances of other players destroying your cargo is going to be extremely high, and it wouldn't hurt to have someone watching your back. There is one more way that you can make some money with the bunker, and those are called excess weapon parts. Every 48 minutes, a weapon truck will spawn in your bunker, and all you have to do is quickly deliver it to an ammunition around the map, which will always get you $50,000, which also recovers a portion of your resupply cost, because when you spend $75,000 on supplies, you can get back a quick and easy $50,000, which leaves you with $25k to make a return on, which isn't bad at all. Now, what about research? Like I mentioned at the beginning, you can assign your staff to research. But what does this do? Well, you can unlock a range of different upgrades for vehicles and weapons, most of which are cosmetic such as liveries, but some can actually be very useful, such as different rounds for Mark II weapons. Unfortunately, you can't just choose which ones you want, because that would be too easy. Instead, you need to fill up your research bar by buying supplies, and when they run out, you can unlock any random upgrade. Or you can fast track your research. Depending on how empty the research bar is, this can cost up to $225,000. And again, whatever you unlock is totally random. So while some of these can be useful, it's not worth assigning your staff to, nor should you assign them to both research and manufacturing, because if you want to make money, avoid this completely. And with all that being said, you now know everything about the bunker. It is now time for the next best passive income business, the MC businesses. Unlike every other business in the game where you can only own one property, the MC businesses allow you to own a total of 5 different businesses at once. So what are they? There is the document forgery office, the counterfeit cash factory, then the green stuff, then the blue stuff that Walter White makes, and finally there is the white stuff. All you need to know is that these are all some type of drug, and each business creates and sells them. And in order to begin buying and setting up these businesses, you do actually need to own a totally separate business, the MC Clubhouse. To do this, go to the Maze Bank Foreclosures website, then filter the options to Clubhouse only. You're going to see 12 different locations, ranging from $200,000 up to $500,000. However, the good thing about the location is that it doesn't really matter in terms of just the MC businesses, but if you're looking to make more money with the Clubhouse, then a city location will help you massively. When it comes to the upgrades, the only one you should buy is the custom bike shop, which costs $530,000. Before buying this, let me explain how it earns you money inside the clubhouse. So there are 3 different ways to earn money: the customer deliveries, clubhouse contracts, and lastly, the clubhouse bar. The customer deliveries can only be started through the custom bike shop upgrade. So how do they work? Every 30 minutes to an hour, a customer will drop off their bike inside your clubhouse. You can decide to modify it and deliver it back to them for some very easy money. How much money? When you begin customizing the bike, you will see certain requirements from the customer that they want on their bike. This will cost you $10,000 to do, and every delivery you make earns you $60,000, meaning a very easy $50,000 profit. But there is a way to get more money. You may receive bonuses depending on how you customize the bike. Remember those requirements? Well, if you ignore them and simply do your own thing, the customer is either going to love what you did and give you a bonus, or they will hate what you did, deducting your earnings from either $2,500 up to $5,000. Inside your clubhouse, there is a bar. This can earn you some money as long as you keep resupplying it. To do that, start a supply mission from the bar. This will send you out to collect a van full of supplies, and if you deliver it back with minimal damage, the bar will make you $5,000 per day passively, only if you keep it supplied. These resupply missions will keep your bar full for 4 in-game days, making you $25,000. When it is empty, you will need to complete another mission, and to collect your earnings, go to this duffel bag inside your office, which holds a maximum of $100,000. If you want some easy pocket money, then this can be worth doing every once in a while, but the amount really isn't worth it. Your clubhouse has contracts. These are basically VIP jobs, but they pay a little bit more. So how do you start them? Head over to this board inside your clubhouse. There will always be 3 random contracts at a time for you to start. And with there being 13 different contracts, 8 of them can be done solo. And if you want to make these worth your time, only ever do the life and death bikes contract, as it pays $37,000 for only 5 minutes of work. The rest of the contracts aren't worth doing, but if you're looking for a fun and easy way to make some quick cash, then try them out. Anyway, that is enough said about the clubhouse. It's time to get into the big bucks, the MC businesses. Like I said, there are 5 different ones that you can purchase. Each business has a choice of 4 different locations, and they can be purchased from this computer inside your clubhouse. The locations don't really matter, so to save you some money, go for the cheapest ones if you want to. How do these work and which ones should you buy? Because not all of them are actually worth it. Basically, these work just like any other business. As long as you're bringing in the supplies, your staff will use them to make stock so that you can sell. So how do I get the supplies? You can either buy them for $75,000 or steal them. This wastes a lot of time, with each steal mission taking 10 minutes to do. So always buy them. Just like every other business in the game, if you want to make more money, you need to be buying the staff and equipment upgrades. The security upgrade is a waste of money, so don't buy that. So how much money do these businesses make? Starting with the document forgery office, this will cost you $650,000 for the cheapest one, and with both upgrades that will cost an extra $745,000, totaling $1.4 million spent on the business. To get full stock, the resupply cost will be $90,000, which will sell for $157,000, giving you a profit of $67,500, taking 3 hours to produce, meaning you earn $22,500 profit per hour. This business is a huge waste of time and money, therefore you should not buy it. The green stuff will cost you $715,000 for the cheapest one, and with both upgrades that will cost an extra $1.263 million, totaling just under $2 million spent on this business. To get full stock, the resupply cost will be $150,000, which will sell for $315,000, giving you a profit of $165,000. However, this takes 5.5 hours to produce, meaning you earn $30,000 profit per hour. Again, do not buy this business. The counterfeit cash factory will cost you $845,000 for the cheapest location, and with both upgrades that will come to an extra $1.15 million, totaling again just under $2 million for this business. The full resupply cost will be $150,000 and will sell for $367,000, which gives you a profit of $217,000, taking 5.5 hours to produce, meaning you earn $39,000 profit per hour, which is much better than the others. The blue stuff will cost $910,000 for the cheapest location, and with both upgrades this will cost you $1.43 million, bringing the total cost to $2.3 million, making it the most expensive business. To fully resupply it, you will spend $165,000, and this sells for $446,000, giving you a profit of $281,000, which takes 6 hours to produce, meaning you earn $46,000 profit per hour. And finally, the white stuff. The cheapest location will cost you $975,000, and both upgrades will cost an extra $1.3 million, meaning the full cost will be $2.3 million for this business. To fully fill up this business, the resupply cost will be $165,000, which sells for $525,000, giving you a profit of $360,000, which only takes 5 hours to produce. So you earn $72,000 profit per hour, making this the best MC business. So which ones should you buy out of the 5? If it wasn't already obvious, you should only be buying the white lockup, then the blue lab, and finally the counterfeit cash factory. Every other business you can ignore. That was a lot of numbers, but what about the sell missions? All of these businesses have different types of selling missions. You can get the planes, the buzzards, the boats, the garbage trucks, or everyone's favorite, the post-op vans. These types of missions will always spawn 4 vehicles with 5 drops each when selling a full business. But they will now have a 45-minute timer when selling as a solo player, which does make certain missions possible except for post-op vans, which can still not be completed within the time limit. However, there are better sell missions that you can get, such as the bike drop missions, which only require 1 drop off per bike, or you can get extremely lucky and receive the single truck mission, which you will only ever get for the green business, the white stuff, and the cash factory businesses. The main thing to know is that for every 1.5 bar of stock, you will get 1 vehicle, and even with the time limits being increased to 45 minutes for solo players, it can still be very risky to sell a full business solo. It just depends on the type of mission that you get, because some of them can easily be done as a solo player, especially these single drop-offs, and others, such as the post-ops, cannot be done. But with all that being said, that is everything you need to know about the MC businesses. Now let's get into one of the better passive businesses, the Acid Lab. You first need to own a Brickade 6x6, which is where the Acid Lab is stored. So how do you do this? The easiest yet most expensive way is by just purchasing it from Warstock, which will cost you $750,000. Doing this avoids you having to complete the first dose missions, which is by far the best way to unlock the Brickade. You can start these missions by going to the letter R on your map. There are 6 missions in total, which can all be completed within 1 hour. And when doing so for the first time, you will earn $400,000 from the bonuses. After you have finished them all, you will need to complete a quick setup mission by collecting the Acid Lab equipment from a warehouse. This allows you to install the Acid Lab into the Brickade 6x6, which can be done inside of the Freak Shop for the cost of $750,000. And although you can now technically start making money with the Acid Lab, you can make a lot more if you have the equipment upgrade. However, we can't just purchase it yet. We need to unlock it. But how do we do that? By completing 10 Fooligan jobs. These can be started by calling Dax and requesting work. Each job takes around 10 minutes to complete and will earn you $50,000 every time. But they do have a cooldown of 48 minutes, which, by the way, is still active when you aren't playing, meaning you can log back on and a new job will be ready, which is why you need to start doing them earlier on to get a head start with the business. The equipment upgrade will cost you $250,000. However, completing both the Fooligan jobs and the first dose missions means you're only spending $100,000 on the Acid Lab. You only have to put in the work, which is why you should never buy the Brickade 6x6 from Warstock. So, you're now ready to start making millions. But how does it work? The Acid Lab is very similar to the other businesses. The more supplies you bring in, the more product you make, meaning the more money you make. So how do we get the supplies? Just like every other business, you can obviously buy them or source them. If you choose to source your supplies, you'll have to complete a very long and boring mission, which only ever gives you 2 bars of supplies, making it a massive waste of time. Instead, call up Mutt or enter your Acid Lab and buy supplies for $60,000. To get a full Acid Lab, the resupply cost would be $96,000, and this will take 4 hours to produce. However, you can speed this up. You have the option to speed up your production once every 24 hours, which decreases the production speed to only 3 hours to fill up. So, how much money do you actually make? Like I said, to fully resupply your Acid Lab, it will cost $96,000, which earns you $335,000, meaning you get a profit of $239,000, which is amazing. But we are not done yet. When selling in a public lobby, you can earn a high demand bonus, which means every player will earn you 2% more, with the limit being 50%. So you could be making $502,000 from a full Acid Lab. This means you are making $167,600 profit per hour, making this one of the best businesses in the game. But what about the sell missions? When it comes to selling, no matter how much stock you have, you will always get one vehicle, making this not only beginner friendly, but solo friendly as well. The sell vehicle will always be the Mkenzie Scout, which comes with the Brickade 6x6 when you unlock it. You can customize this bike inside of the Freak Shop by upgrading its performance as well as how it looks, but this won't really affect your sell missions too much. And speaking of, there are 3 types that you can get. One mission will require you to drop off papers filled with your product, and there will always be 10 different locations that you need to go to, which are all within a close distance to each other. Sometimes this mission can be annoying with the aiming not working properly, but you can always get this completed in around 10 minutes. Another mission will see you going to 5 different drops scattered around the map. Sometimes certain locations may have police waiting for you, so keep an eye out for the not so undercover cars, because you will get a wanted level at these drops. Again, this should only take 10 minutes. The best mission to receive is the single drop off, where you only need to go to one location, which is a van. Sometimes this mission will have police, which will always give you a wanted level, so to save you time, when you get to the location, shoot the first cop car that you see, then drive out of there until you lose your wanted level, and then you can finish the mission. Doing this will only take 5 minutes, which is not a lot of effort for a massive reward. With the money making side of the Acid Lab covered, let's now go over the features and the upgrades of the Brickade. Just like the delivery bike, you can upgrade the Brickade 6x6 inside the Freak Shop. This includes armor plating, ramp options, as well as mines, which can turn the Brickade into a phantom wedge. The armor plating also makes the Brickade unstoppable, taking a total of 47 RPG shots for it to blow up, making it one of the most armored vehicles in the game. But that's not all, because the Acid Lab is a service vehicle, so you can of course request it wherever you are, which also applies to source missions, if you obviously do them, allowing you to quickly complete any source mission no matter where you are, simply by requesting it and delivering the supplies. Within the interaction menu, you can also change the name of your Acid Lab, meaning you can come up with some pretty interesting ideas. Changing the Acid Lab's name isn't all you can do though, because you can also change the product's name. Doing this will earn you a 50% bonus on your selling missions. Even if it is a small percent, it can still earn you a bit more money, so change the name of your product. The Acid Lab is an amazing business. The money that you can earn as a solo player is incredible for the time that you put into it. And with all that being said, that is everything that you need to know about the Acid Lab. Let's now get into by far the best passive income business, and that is the Nightclub. First things first, you need to actually buy one, which you can do from the Maze Bank Foreclosures website. Then select the nightclubs, where you're going to see 10 different locations, all within the city, which range from $1 million up to $1.7 million. The best locations to get are either the West Vinewood or downtown Vinewood nightclubs, which are the most expensive ones. The reason you want these is because almost all sell missions are located towards the top of the map, which is within the perfect distance from these two nightclubs. However, you will rarely ever be selling your nightclub, which is why the location really doesn't matter, so just go for whichever location you prefer. Although I do recommend avoiding these bottom 3 nightclubs, because although they are the cheapest ones, if you want to change your nightclub's location later down the road, you will need to repurchase all of the upgrades again, so keep that in mind when choosing the nightclub's location. When it comes to the cosmetic upgrades, they are exactly that, cosmetic. They will not make you more money, and instead they change the way your nightclub looks, which could see you spending up to $3 million with them all. But the only useful upgrade is the storage, which allows you to add additional warehouse and garage space, with a maximum of 4 extra floors of storage for your warehouse, costing up to $1.7 million. And you can also add an extra 3 floors of garage space, with each holding 10 vehicles, which is very useful to have. And altogether, you would be spending $2.1 million. Once you have purchased the nightclub, you will need to complete a few setup missions, which requires you to collect your staff and equipment as well as your DJ. But after completing them, you will need to spend more money on the business upgrades, which include the equipment upgrade costing $1.4 million. This will speed up the rate in which the goods are produced, so it is very much worth buying. Then there's the staff upgrade, which costs $475,000, and this will reduce the time in which it takes for your popularity bar to decrease. And for what I go over later in the video, this upgrade is not really necessary, especially if you're low on money. And finally, there's the security upgrade, which costs $695,000. And this will reduce the likelihood of your nightclub being raided by enemies. And although this rarely ever happens, I do recommend getting this upgrade later down the line. But for now, the most important one is the equipment upgrade. The rest can be bought later on. Now when it comes to making money, there are 2 ways with the nightclub. The first is through the nightclub popularity, which is the best passive income in the game. When inside your nightclub, you're going to see your popularity bar. This determines how popular your nightclub is, and the more customers that you have visiting your nightclub, the more passive income you generate. So it's your job to keep this bar full to make the most money. But how do we do that? On your nightclub's computer, there is a nightclub management section. This is where you can check the status of your popularity as well as promoting the club. This will send you out on a long and boring mission where you will be placing posters around the city or dropping off flyers. And these missions will earn you a small chunk of popularity, but they do have a 5-minute cooldown, and they take way too long to do. But there are much better ways of increasing your popularity, and the best way to do it is by kicking out troublemakers. To do this, always enter your nightclub in passive mode. This way, when inside, you will see a blue dot on your map. When you go over to it, you will be given the option to remove a troublemaker. Doing this will give you a huge boost in popularity as well as an extra $10,000. This is the fastest way to increase your popularity, as you don't have to leave your nightclub once and it only takes a minute to do. Another very easy way is by escorting a VIP. If you do not enter the nightclub in passive mode, there is a chance that you can get the delivery of a VIP. They will always be marked with this icon, and when interacting with them, you will be kicked out of the nightclub and put into a vehicle, where you will need to drive the VIP to a random location. But if you drive too fast or crash, you will spook the VIP, and if this bar is completely filled, the mission will be over. However, successfully completing this mission will give you a nice increase in popularity, and again, $10,000. Although this mission is a little bit more tedious than the others, it's still much better than the management ones. However, keep in mind that these 2 missions will only spawn inside your nightclub if you actually have enough popularity for customers to actually be there. The final way to increase popularity is through the resident DJ. There are 4 different DJs to choose from, and if it's your first time booking one of them, it will cost $100,000, and this gives you a full bar of popularity. However, the next time you want to book them, it will only cost you $10,000, but this time you only get a small increase in popularity. An easy method you can use is by going onto your basement computer, because it will skip the DJ cutscene, which saves you a lot of time, allowing you to switch between each DJ until your popularity is full. this could cost up to $100,000 if you have no popularity. And although this isn't a cheap option, it is definitely the fastest. So now you know how to fill it up, but how much money does it earn you? With a full popularity bar, your nightclub wall safe generates $50,000 every 48 minutes. As long as you keep maintaining your popularity, your income will not drop. Simply visit the nightclub every hour or so to kick out a troublemaker, and you will consistently earn 50k per hour. The wall safe does have a max capacity of 250,000, so make sure that you empty it every now and again to avoid missing out on daily income. Now that you know everything about the popularity, it's time to get into the main way to make money, and that is through the nightclub warehouse. Inside of the nightclub's computer, you want to head to the warehouse management tab. Here you are going to see 5 different technicians that are available to you. One of which is Johan, who comes for free with the nightclub. However, the other 4 technicians need to be hired, which will cost up to $878,000. Once these technicians are hired, they can be assigned to any type of good. However, only 1 technician can be assigned to each type of good at once. And with there being 7 possible good types and only 5 technicians, you want to make sure that you're assigning them to the best possible ones. The 7 good types are linked to a certain business in the game, and they will only be available to the technicians if you own the corresponding business. The 7 types of goods include cargo and shipments, which is the special crate warehouse, or the hangar, sporting goods, which is the bunker, South American imports, which is the cork lockup, pharmaceutical research, which is the blue lab, organic produce, which is the green farm, printing and copying, which is the document forgery office, and finally cash creation, which is the counterfeit cash factory. If you do not own any of the required businesses that are linked to the product, those goods will be locked until you do. However, you do not need to own all of the businesses listed above, because each type of product will produce stock at different rates and earn different amounts. But like I mentioned, you only have 5 available technicians at a time, which means you should avoid organic produce and printing and copying, which are linked to the 2 worst businesses in the game. Now, if you don't have all of the other 5 businesses, then you're going to be spending a lot of money. And depending on what type of player you are, the nightclub is going to be a very expensive business to start up. However, you only need to own the cheapest options for all of the businesses. As long as they are set up and running, you can assign your technicians to the associated goods in your nightclub. The businesses do not need to have supplies or stock inside of them, and you don't even need to purchase any of the upgrades for them, unless you are of course running the businesses outside of the nightclub. The cheapest options for the cork lockup, blue lab and counterfeit cash factory will see you spending over $3 million, because you do need to also own a clubhouse. The cheapest bunker will also cost just over $1 million, and the cheapest hangar will cost $1.2 million. Or instead, if you want the crate warehouses, this will also cost $1.2 million, because this will require a CEO office. And altogether, you would be spending between $5 million to $5.2 million, and that is without any upgrades, which can see the cost going up even more. So to put it short, the nightclub warehouse is not cheap at all if you want to make the most money, especially if you're a beginner. You definitely do not have the funds required to set up the nightclub warehouse. But over time, you will eventually have all the correct businesses to make the warehouse a money-making machine. Once a technician has been assigned to a specific good type, they will acquire those goods automatically without any other requirements from you. Unlike the actual business linked to them, there are no supplies required for the nightclub. It is all completely passive and you get full profit. However, there are other ways to fill up the nightclub. The first is through business battles, which will only spawn when there are 3 or more players in a session. These business battles allow you to obtain anywhere from 2 to 8 crates for your warehouse. Some require you to pick up a single vehicle containing the crates, or you can collect up to 8 individual crates, depending on if you're quick enough and if there aren't any other players participating. You also earn $10,000 for each crate of goods that you deliver. This is a great way to fill up your nightclub, saving you so much time. The final way is by calling Johan. and requesting nightclub goods, which will give you the location of a truck containing cargo. All you have to do is steal it and deliver it back to the nightclub. This will also give you 1 crate at random for your warehouse, and this can definitely help you fill up your warehouse much faster, although there is a 20-minute cooldown before you can start one up again. In order to maximize profits and not waste any time, the best time to sell the nightclub is when South American imports reaches maximum capacity at 10 out of 10 crates. The reason for this is because this makes you the most amount of money in just 20 hours. Because South American imports, pharmaceutical research and cash creation each take 20 hours to fill up, and for the rest, sporting goods and cargo and shipments, they take up to 60 hours. So selling all 5 of them with the other 3 full works out much easier for you. Just keep in mind that Tony, your nightclub's manager, will always take a 10% cut out of your earnings. However, this caps out at $100,000 when selling anything above 1 million. You can also sell your nightclub goods within special orders, which gives you an extra bonus for doing so. However, unlike selling all of the goods at once, you will need to do this a lot more regularly, which totally depends on if you want to waste time on doing sell missions. While on the topic of sell missions, the nightclub actually has 3 different options to choose from, depending on the amount of crates that you are selling. The first is the Speedo custom, which you get when selling between 0 and 89 crates. This comes free with the nightclub. Next is the Mule custom, which is used for 90 to 179 crates, and for anything above 180 crates, you get the Pounder custom. These can be purchased separately from Warstock, and to save you money, only ever buy the Pounder custom because it can hold any amount of crates, making the Mule custom completely useless. These vehicles can also be upgraded inside the nightclub, allowing you to add armor and weapon options, which can be very useful if you're someone who sells in public lobbies. And when it comes to selling the nightclub, no matter how much stock that you have, you will only ever receive 1 vehicle, which makes these sell missions extremely easy for solo players. And finally, the nightclub also allows you to purchase and store the Terabyte, which is one of the most versatile vehicles in the game. Not only can you store your Oppressor Mark II inside of it, but you can also launch source missions for your businesses, which include the MC businesses, the bunker, special cargo, vehicle cargo, and the hangar, which can save you so much time. The Terabyte also allows you to launch client jobs, which are basically jacked up VIP missions. These take around 5 minutes to do and earn you between $30,000. And that is the nightclub explained, which wraps up all of the passive income businesses in the game. And that now brings me on to the active income businesses, starting with the most notorious, the hangar. There are a total of 5 different hangar locations, ranging from $1.2 million all the way up to over $3.2 million. So which location is the best? Well, you want to choose between any of the 3 Fort Zancudo hangars. The cheapest one will cost just over $2 million, and it's in a perfect location. But why? These 3 hangar locations allow very easy access into the military base, as you won't ever get a wanted level for entering. This can be very useful, especially if you want to steal a jet without any problems. However, the most important reason is that they are the closest to almost all of the sourcing missions, which is going to save you a ton of time and hassle. Normally, these missions would take 10 to 15 minutes to complete, but not for the Fort Zancudo hangars. As for the upgrades, there are many options to choose, which could see you spending over $5 million, but most of these are useless and they won't make you more money, except for the living quarters, which is very useful, allowing you to spawn inside of your hangar whenever you join the game. Apart from being one of the best businesses, the hangar can also be used to store aircrafts, as it is the only property that can do that. So if you're planning on buying a lot of planes or helicopters, the hangar is a must-own property. And if you're one of those players, you should purchase the workshop upgrade, which will cost $1.15 million. This will allow you to modify any aircrafts that are stored inside of your hangar, which is very useful. So how does the business work? Basically, you need to source supplies for the hangar by doing source missions. Then these get turned into product for you to sell. And when it comes to actually sourcing supplies, how do we do that? Unlike other businesses, there are no options to buy supplies, which does mean higher profits, but also much more time spent on the business, as you will always have to do the source missions, which can be started from the source tab on your computer. You're going to see 8 different cargo types, but I'll be going over those later. When sourcing crates, there are 2 mission types: air missions or land missions. The air source missions are some of the longest and most boring in the game, taking up to 15 minutes to finish while also being much harder, unlike the land missions, which have 4 variants, 2 of which will require you to pick up a crate from a location and the others having vehicles to deliver with the crates inside, all of which are much faster and easier to do. As a solo player, you will always receive 1 crate per mission. However, this will of course change depending on if you have other players, allowing you to steal multiple at once, which will make it a lot faster. These single crate missions are extremely easy to do. Just head to either a crash site or a warehouse, where you can quickly collect and deliver the crate within minutes. For the trailer mission, instead of having to drive a slow truck all the way back to your hangar, just blow up the trailer, allowing you to collect all of the crates, which is much faster. The sea barge mission is the worst one that you can get, making you go underwater and collect the cargo using a submarine, where you will then have to load it onto a very slow van. It is a massive waste of time, but not as much as the air missions. There is one more way that you can source cargo, and that is through your staff member Rooster, who can be found here inside your hangar. He will charge $25,000 every time and takes 48 minutes. Most of the time he will source 1 crate, but rarely ever 2 crates, which is the maximum that he will get. The cargo type is also random, and for what I'm about to go over next, avoid Rooster at all times. So what about the money? Like I said earlier, there are 8 different cargo types, which are split up into 3 groups, each group having different values based on their sell bonuses. The maximum amount per cargo type is 50 crates. Group 1 is made of 2 types of cargo: counterfeit and tobacco. For every 5 crates from the 2 types, you get a bonus of 5%, with the maximum reaching 50% for 50 crates, which sells for $2.25 million. Group 2 is made up of 3 cargo types: jewelry, art and animal, and for every 15 crates from the 3 types, you get a bonus of 12%, with the maximum reaching 60% for 50 crates, which will sell for $2.4 million. Group 3 is made up of 3 types of cargo: medical, chemicals and narcotics, and for every 25 crates from those 3 types, you get a 35% bonus, with the maximum reaching 70% for 50 crates, which will sell for $2.5 million, making it the best cargo group. Now that's not the only thing that changes, because each group also has cooldowns. Group 1 has a base cooldown of 1 minute, and for every crate that you source, that is 1 added minute, meaning for solo players, you will have a 2-minute cooldown between sourcing. Group 2 has a base cooldown of 2 minutes, meaning for solo players, you will have a 3-minute cooldown. And Group 3 has a base cooldown of 3 minutes, which means solo players will have a 4-minute cooldown. Basically, you just add 1 minute onto the base cooldown for every crate that you're sourcing. For example, if you had 3 friends and you sourced Group 3, you would be sourcing 4 crates. So you would add 4 minutes onto the base cooldown, meaning you would be waiting for 7 minutes until you can source again. So what should you be doing? If you want to make the most money, you should only ever source Group 3 cargo types. However, with the 4-minute cooldowns, sourcing just 50 crates of one type of Group 3 cargo is going to take you forever, although it is worth it. Instead, you can decide to fill up 25 crates of chemical and 25 crates of either narcotics or medical, as you don't spend as much time and you still get a 35% bonus for each. This way, during the 4-minute cooldowns for chemical, you can source narcotics, for example, and when you're done, the cooldown will have finished, meaning you didn't have to wait between each cooldown, which can then be sold for $1 million each, earning you a total of $2 million, taking about 4 hours to fill up, which means you're making around $500,000 per hour. However, if you want the maximum amount of money by selling 50 crates of medical, chemical, or narcotics, you will of course make $2.5 million with the 70% bonus. The only problem is, of course, the time, but it is worth doing. This could take anywhere from 5 hours to 7 hours to source 50 crates, if you are of course solo. Selling these in a public lobby is going to increase your profits massively. For every player, you earn a 2% high demand bonus, meaning if you sell 50 crates of group 3 in a 20+ player lobby, you will earn a whopping $3.8 million. This works out to an hourly estimate of around $540,000 or $360,000 without the high demand bonus. Although this is a very risky thing to do, it's going to be very rewarding. Just make sure someone is watching your back when selling. Speaking of, when it comes to selling, you can choose either to sell by air or land. Here's the amazing thing, no matter how many crates you have, you will only ever get one sell vehicle when selling by land. However, air missions can be split up into over 8 vehicles depending on how many crates you have. Obviously, always sell by land. The missions are incredibly easy to do. It will be a vehicle drop to different points on the map, or even sometimes only one drop, taking you less than 10 minutes and earning you millions. With all that being said, you now know everything about the hangar. This is an incredible business. However, it is a business that will not be liked by most solo players, as it is best to be completed with friends. But if you are willing to put in the effort, you can earn a lot of money from it. And with all that being said, let's now get into the next active income business, the special crate warehouses. To begin buying the warehouses, you actually need to own a separate property, the CEO office, which can be purchased from the Dynasty 8 executive website. These range from $1 million all the way up to $4 million. However, the location does not matter, so go for the cheapest one, unless you have millions to spend. As for the upgrades, all of these are useless, except for accommodation, which will cost $750,000, allowing you to spawn inside your office whenever you join the game, which is very useful. The office allows you to purchase and run your warehouses, which can be done through this computer. When logging in, you're going to see 3 options. For now, just click on special cargo, where you're going to see a map of all the warehouses you can buy, with there being 3 types: small, medium, and large. Small warehouses can hold only 16 crates of cargo, costing between $250,000 to $400,000. Medium warehouses can hold 46 crates and cost between $880,000 to $1 million. And large warehouses can hold 111 crates, costing between $1.9 million to $3.5 million. Look, if you want this business to actually be profitable and worth your time, you have to buy the large warehouses, because you will constantly have to keep selling your small or medium warehouses, whereas the large ones will rarely ever get full, allowing you to keep filling it up until it is ready to sell. You can own 5 warehouses at once of any type, which does mean you can own 5 large warehouses, which would see you spending up to $14 million. However, you shouldn't do this. Instead, you only want to buy 2 large warehouses, because for every source mission, there will be a 5-minute cooldown, which you can completely avoid, because after you're done sourcing for one warehouse, the cooldown for the other will be over, allowing you to fill up both warehouses in no time. So, how does this business work? You pay for a certain amount of cargo at once, anywhere between 1 to 3 crates, then you source them and deliver them back to your warehouse, where you can later sell for more money. So, how do you source cargo? There are 2 ways. The first is buying them, either 1 crate at a time or up to 3 crates, each costing $6,000. You will always want to buy 3 crates. This can be done from your office computer or from the control screen in your terabyte, which will save you a lot more time. This will cost $18,000 to source, earning you $54,000, which gives you a profit of $36,000. And although it is a lot more profitable to buy 1 crate at a time, buying 3 is going to save you so much time. When you start a source mission, there are two types that you can get, one of which is an individual crate drop, taking the longest to complete, given the fact that you can only carry one crate at a time, which would take around 5 to 10 minutes to do, if you have a fast vehicle, like an oppressor. The vehicle mission is the best one to get, as all you have to do is steal one vehicle containing all of the crates, and depending on what location that you get, this should only take 5 minutes to deliver to your warehouse. The next way to source crates is through your staff members, who will always be inside of your warehouses. This will cost $7,500, and the chances of them bringing back one crate is 65%, 2 crates is going to be 25%, and finally 3 crates is only 10%. This will take 48 minutes, which also happens while you're offline. So by the time you log back on, your crates will be delivered to your warehouses. So, how can we use this to our advantage? Normally, it will take 77 source missions for your staff to fill up a large warehouse, which means every once in a while you can have your staff members source crates for your warehouse, which regularly fills them up without you having to actually grind for hours during the missions. However, you can take this to another level by combining your staff as well as doing the source missions yourself. This way, your warehouse can be filled up in just 5 to 6 hours as a solo player, which is why you should only ever own 2 large warehouses, allowing you to skip the cooldowns between missions. So, how much money do you make? A full large warehouse sells for $2.2 million in a solo lobby, which costs $666,000 to fill up when buying 3 crates at a time, giving you a profit of $1.54 million. However, what about the high demand bonus? If selling in a public lobby with 25 or more players, a large warehouse sells for $3.3 million, giving you a profit of just over $2.6 million. And although it is a very risky thing to do, the reward will make it worth it. Just make sure that you have friends to help, because you don't want to potentially lose 6 hours of work. From time to time, there can be double money events for these warehouses, which can see you earning $6.6 million per large warehouse, which is an insane profit of just under $6 million. So how do we take advantage of these double money events? Whenever you are playing, have your staff source cargo for your warehouses. Eventually, these will fill up over time, which you can sell when the time comes. But there is a problem. If your warehouse has over 77 crates, there's a chance it can be raided, meaning you can potentially lose all of your product, which is why you should never go above 77 crates. Before you reach this amount, wait until the double money events, where you will then need to only complete 11 source missions to fill up the remainder of your warehouses, which you can then sell without any risk of being raided. Now, there is one more way to make money with this business, the export mixed goods mission. This can be started inside your office every 48 minutes. And all you have to do is deliver a truck to the docks, earning you $50,000 every time, which is totally worth doing for some easy money. Now, what about the sell missions? There are 3 types that you can get: land, sea, or air. The land missions can take the longest, requiring you to deliver up to 3 separate vehicles, depending on if you have over 27 crates. However, the sea and air missions will always give you 1 vehicle. These can be very easy to complete, taking only 15 minutes, but the Brickade land missions are going to take much longer, which is why you should have others helping you, especially if you want the high demand bonus. If not, you can always sell in invite only sessions, making a lot less money but much less risk. You can upgrade these delivery vehicles, which can improve speed and armor, by going to this red cabinet inside any of your warehouses. Upgrading the delivery truck by adding armor will cost $230,000, along with bulletproof tires for $90,000. The delivery plane also has an armor upgrade for $190,000, as well as a lock-on jammer, costing $300,000. Finally, the delivery boat armor upgrade will cost $265,000, plus a speed upgrade for $170,000. While these do help a little, they aren't going to stop griefers from destroying you in public sessions, and if this does nearly happen to you, always find a new session. Although you will lose some product, it could be much worse. You can sometimes receive special cargo items. Your assistant will call you letting you know about them, and if she does, do not leave that session, otherwise you lose the special item, meaning you will have to wait for your assistant to call you again. Although these special items cost much more to source, they will make you a lot more money when selling, between $95,000 up to $150,000 depending on what you get. These have to be sold separately from the rest of your cargo, earning you some very easy money. And with all that being said, that is everything you need to know about these special crate warehouses. Let's now move on to the next warehouse business. The vehicle warehouses. Just like the crate warehouses, you're going to need a CEO office. You can purchase one of them from Dynasty 8 Executive, and they range from the price of $1 million up to $4 million. But the location doesn't actually matter, because you'll rarely ever be using the office. So just go for the cheapest one. As for the office itself, the rest of the customizations are totally cosmetic and useless, so do not bother buying them. When you head inside of the office, go over to your computer and you're going to see 3 options. But the one you want to click on is vehicle cargo, and this is where you're going to be able to manage your vehicle warehouse. There are a total of 9 vehicle warehouse locations to choose from, starting from $1.5 million and going up to $2.8 million. And they are all located towards the bottom area of the map. However, unlike the special cargo warehouses, the location of your warehouse doesn't actually matter, so you can go for the cheapest one, which is the La Mesa warehouse. And luckily for us, this is a really decent location, especially for it being the cheapest one. When you go to purchase the warehouse, you're going to see a range of different style options. These cost a lot of money and don't earn you any, so stick with the basic layout for now. So how does this business work? Essentially, your goal is to source vehicles and then sell them for a higher profit. But how do you actually source the vehicles? There are 2 main ways to begin vehicle sourcing missions. The first and less efficient way is through your CEO office computer. Just head to the vehicle cargo section, click on your warehouse, and then source the vehicle. The next way is through the Terabyte. Now, understandably, a lot of you watching this video probably don't own a Terabyte, but for those who already do, the Terabyte is going to be a lot more convenient and save you a lot of time. Just park your Terabyte close to your vehicle warehouse, head to the control screen, and launch the vehicle cargo mission. No matter what way you start these missions, the premise for them are all pretty straightforward. You head to the vehicle location, steal it, and then deliver it back to your warehouse. Each source mission can have different variants, but they are all pretty straightforward and require you to steal a vehicle and delivering it to your warehouse with as little damage as possible. Because no matter how much damage you receive, that repair is going to come out of your pocket. So if you find your vehicle cargo to be too damaged, it's best to destroy the vehicle and start the mission over again, so that you don't lose a lot of profit. On the topic of losing profit, if you ever receive the Cargo Bob source mission, join a new session and start over again. This mission is a huge waste of time, and if you decide to deliver the vehicle with the Cargo Bob as intended, the enemy choppers are going to cause far too much damage to your vehicle, making the mission extremely pointless. Every other source mission, however, should only take 4 to 5 minutes to complete when using more advanced vehicles like the Oppressor Mark II or the Sparrow. Every time you complete a source mission, you'll have to wait 3 minutes before starting up another. So, how much money does this business make you? This business is a lot different to the rest. Let me explain. When sourcing vehicles for your warehouse, there are 3 possible vehicle options that you are going to get. It will either be standard range, mid-range, or top range. So, what's the difference? Standard range will earn you only $30,000 profit, mid-range vehicles will earn you $50,000 profit, and top-range vehicles will get you $80,000 profit. So, using this logic, you'd think it's easy money to just constantly source and sell top-range vehicles. And while that's not exactly wrong, the vehicle warehouse is a little bit trickier than that. You need to put in a lot of effort, and I mean a lot, before you can start making the big bucks. When you start up a source mission, the game is going to mix between all 3 types of vehicles and pick one of them at random. However, we can change this. You see, each vehicle type has a maximum amount that you can source before the game begins giving you duplicates of the same vehicle. For standard range and mid-range, there is only a total of 10 different vehicles, and for top range, there are 12. Okay. Right, so what am I supposed to do with that information? The game will only begin giving you duplicate vehicles after all 32 vehicle types have been sourced and stored in your warehouse. So here's what you want to do. You need to source all 10 standard range vehicles and all 10 mid-range vehicles. But it's important that you never sell any of them, because as long as you have 20 standard and mid-range vehicles, the game will only ever give you top range vehicles when sourcing, which also means you're going to be making a lot of money. So here's the simple method. Once you source 10 standard and 10 mid-range vehicles, you will obviously only ever get top range. So just source a top range vehicle and sell a top range vehicle, and repeat that over and over without ever selling your standard or mid-range vehicles. And I know what you're all thinking. This seems like a massive grind, and that's because it is. This process can take a long time to complete, but trust me, when it's done, the rewards are definitely worth it. When it comes to actually selling the vehicles, obviously only ever export the top range, because we just went over it, but don't make the mistake of not choosing the specialist dealer. This is the only reason your profits are going to be higher. Always choose the specialist dealer for the most money. Before the export mission begins, you will have to complete some simple modifications to the vehicle. None of these modifications will change the value of the vehicle, so just pick whatever you want and begin the sell mission. In my opinion, this is where the vehicle warehouse falls below one of the best solo businesses, because the sell missions aren't very kind to solo grinders. Because if you wanted to sell the vehicle in a solo lobby, you can. However, the game is going to send NPCs after you, and trust me, the NPCs do a lot of damage to the vehicle, because just like the source missions, if you damage the vehicle, you lose a lot of profit in the final sale. The only way to avoid these NPCs is by selling in a public lobby. If you do this, you do of course run into the risk of getting griefed. But trust me, the chances of getting griefed in a small public session is worth the risk against actually losing profit because of dumb NPCs. One more thing to mention is that you can sell collections of vehicles for more money. These collections can consist of 2 to 4 vehicles ranging from every vehicle type. In order to sell these, you will need to have 3 or more people in your organization, as each vehicle requires 1 person. However, I highly recommend staying away from these collections. Like I mentioned, they can consist of any type of vehicle, top range, mid-range or standard range. So if you were to sell one of these collections, you risk losing some standard or mid-range vehicles, which means the top range method will no longer work. So keep this in mind before looking into the collections. With all that being said, those are the vehicle warehouses explained. And that wraps up the warehouse businesses, which now brings me to the agency, which is the most versatile business in the game, offering some of the best features out of any property. You can purchase one of them from Dynasty 8 Executive, and there are 4 locations to choose from, all costing between $2 million up to $2.8 million. These are all located within the city and are fairly close to each other, so the location doesn't really matter. When it comes to the upgrades, 3 of them are totally cosmetic, and it's up to you if you want them, but the rest are very useful to have, starting with the armory, which costs $720,000. This essentially gives you your very own ammunition, because the armory allows you to purchase all weapons with a discounted price, as well as being able to upgrade any of them to Mark II versions. You can also buy body armor from here, and to top it off, you can even have the option to create a custom loadout using the gun locker. This thing is very helpful. I recommend getting it. The accommodation upgrade allows you to spawn inside your agency whenever you want. This will cost $725,000. But the most important upgrade is the vehicle workshop, which costs $800,000. The workshop allows you to customize all vehicles that you have inside your agency garage, which by the way holds up to 20 vehicles. But that's not the most important part, because the workshop is the only location where you can upgrade Amani Tech vehicles by adding armor plating and of course Amani Tech features with the missile lock-on jammer and remote control option, which is a huge benefit to have and what makes the agency a great business. But what makes it even better is the money making. There are 4 different ways to make money with the agency. The first is through the security contracts. These can be started from the computer and you will see 3 different missions at a time. These are essentially jacked up VIP missions, which have 6 different variants. Sometimes you have to recover a vehicle and other times you may have to protect an asset. But these missions have different payouts depending on their difficulty. Professional contracts pay between $30,000 to $40,000. Specialist contracts pay out between $44,000 to $56,000. And finally, Specialist Plus contracts pay the highest between $60,000 to $70,000. Security contracts have a 5-minute cooldown before being able to start up another. But like I said, there are 6 different missions you can start and they are all pretty fun to do. But that is not the only way that the contracts make money, which brings me on to the second money maker, and that is the passive income. In order to generate any income through the wall safe, you need to complete security contracts, because every contract you complete will add $100 of daily income to the safe, with each amount actually being added to the safe after every 5 contracts, earning you $500. However, the daily income is capped at $20,000, which requires you to complete over 201 security contracts. This may seem like a grind at first, but it's totally worth it, because after completing 200 contracts, you never have to do them again, and you will consistently earn $20,000 every hour permanently. It's some great passive income. The agency wall safe does have a max capacity of $250,000, so make sure to empty it every once in a while to not miss out on daily income. But that brings me on to the main way to make money, and that is the Dr. Dre contract, which is a series of missions leading to a finale. The basic idea of this contract is that you need to find Dr. Dre's phone, and you can start this up from the computer. When completing it for the first time, you will need to do a setup mission, but after that, you can start completing the main contract, which consists of 3 total missions, which each have 2 setups and a finale, which you can complete in any order before unlocking the 2 main finales. This can be done in around 1 or 2 hours, depending on how many players you are doing it with. Because the cool thing about this is that you can do it solo, making this another great solo way to make money. And speaking of, when finishing the final contract, you will earn $1 million. And for the time that you put into it, this is a great amount of money as a solo player. But that brings me on to the payphone hits, which are the final way to make money. You can unlock these after completing 3 security contracts and then phoning Franklin to request one. This will send you out on a 5-minute job when you need to assassinate a set of targets. However, these hits come with an assassination bonus, which requires you to take out the targets in a specific way to earn a bonus. Doing this earns you $45,000, which for 5 minutes of work is pretty decent. Also, these hits do have a 10-minute cooldown, which means you can add these to your grinding routine whenever there's some downtime. But that is the agency explained, which is by far my personal favorite business in the game. But let's now get into the next business on this list, the auto shop. You can purchase one of them from the Mazebank Foreclosures website, and there are 5 locations in total, which range from $1.6 million to $1.9 million. Again, the location doesn't really matter because they are all within the same distance in the city. When it comes to the upgrades, there's mostly cosmetic options. However, the other options include the staff upgrade, which will cost $385,000 each, because you can have 2 staff members at once. But honestly, they are very useless, so don't bother buying them. The next upgrade is extras, allowing you to add a personal quarters, but most importantly, an extra car lift for $650,000. This will add an extra car lift in the auto shop along with one that already comes for free. I'll explain how this works later on. Before we get into the money making side of the business, there are other features as well, such as having a 10-car garage space, but most importantly, a custom mod shop where you can modify any vehicles you want, with all modifications having a 5% discount. But what's more is that all locked modifications are unlocked for the auto shop owner. So any level requirements are totally gone when inside the auto shop, which is very useful. And speaking of, there are two ways to make money. The first is through the auto shop delivery service. Every hour or so, a customer will bring their vehicle into the shop. However, if you own the optional lift upgrade, then there can be 2 customer vehicles at once, which means more money. To begin servicing the vehicle, you must go over to it and begin customizations. At the bottom of the screen, you're going to see a bunch of random requirements from the customer. All you have to do is modify the vehicle with those requirements and then deliver it to them without taking any damage on your way, because this will lower your earnings by a lot. But when you deliver the vehicle, you will earn between 20 to 30k profit, which isn't too bad at all. However, you can earn satisfaction bonuses of either $2,500 to $5,000 or a reduction of the same amount if the modifications are not satisfactory. To do this, simply ignore the requirements from the customer and add whatever you want to the vehicle. The customer is either going to love what you did or they will hate it, but it's up to you if that's worth doing. Finally, if you own the staff upgrade, you can have them deliver both vehicles at once with both staff members. But here's why they are totally useless. This can take a long time for them to deliver the vehicles, usually around 48 minutes. However, they will always crash the vehicle, which obviously reduces your earnings. So I recommend just delivering the vehicle yourself. Now, the main way to make money is through the auto shop contracts. These can be started from the planning board inside the auto shop, and they are a series of small robberies which consist of 2 prep missions and the main job, which are essentially small heists. On the planning board, there will always be 3 contracts available at a time, which are randomly selected out of the 8 total contracts. There's the bank contract, the data contract, the super dollar deal contract, the prison contract, the agency deal contract, the ECU job contract, the lost contract, and finally the union depository contract. Depending on which one you get, these will pay between $178,000 up to $300,000 and can take around 30 to 40 minutes to complete from start to finish. These are a lot of fun to do, and I highly recommend checking all of them out whenever you can. However, if you want to make the most money possible by only completing the union depository contract, there's an easy method to use. Simply start up any of the 3 available contracts, then leave your auto shop and call up Kosatka to cancel the current job. Then go back inside and there will be a new set of contracts available. If the union depository contract isn't there, simply repeat until it is. This way you earn $300,000 every 30 minutes or so. But that is the auto shop explained, which brings me on to the Salvage Yard. To get started, head over to the Mazebank Foreclosures website and filter by Salvage Yards. You're going to see 5 different locations, 2 of which are located at the top of the map. These range from $1.6 million all the way up to $2.6 million. I recommend all players avoid the Palito Bay locations because almost all of the activities for this business take place within the city, which could see you wasting a lot of time traveling, which is why you should only choose one of these 3 city locations, which are the most expensive, but they are worth it. As for the upgrades, the only cosmetic option is the tint. The rest are actually somewhat useful and make you more money, except for the trade rates upgrade, which is pretty useless because for the price of $450,000, you can get discounts when repairing vehicles at LS Customs and discounts on all claims with Mors Mutual. It's completely up to you if you want to buy this. However, an upgrade that is worth buying is the tow truck upgrade, which gives you access to one of the ways to make money with the Salvage Yard. You have 2 options. First is the regular tow truck, which costs $1.1 million, and this is purely for looks only. It won't offer any extra performance compared to the tow truck beta, which only costs $650,000. So if you're low on money, stick with this one for now. However, you can change the look of your tow truck by hopping inside of it when in the Salvage Yard, which allows you to respray it. And as for how to make money with it, I'll explain in a second. The wall safe is also useless because spending $750,000 will only increase its maximum capacity from $100,000 up to $250,000. So if you have the money, go for it. Finally, there's the staff upgrade, which costs $625,000. This will add one extra staff member along with the other member of staff, which comes for free with the Salvage Yard. As you will soon learn, the staff will speed up the process of salvaging vehicles, which brings me on to how this business works. There are 3 ways to make money with the Salvage Yard. The first is through the tow truck service, which you only unlock if you have the upgrade. When you get inside of the tow truck, you will have the option to launch the tow truck service. This will send you out on a small job to recover an abandoned vehicle that can be salvaged for parts later on. And if you've played the Tonya missions in story mode, these are essentially just like them. When you deliver the vehicle to your salvage yard, your staff will begin salvaging it for parts. You can have 2 vehicles being salvaged at once. However, the tow truck missions do have a small 2-minute cooldown. But once the staff have finished salvaging a vehicle, you can then complete another tow truck mission. If you do not have the staff upgrade, this will take 96 minutes for each vehicle to be salvaged. However, this is halved with the upgrade, only taking 48 minutes. This earns you between $30,000 to $40,000, which isn't bad, but you don't have to be playing the game for the salvage to progress, meaning you'll be paid when you log back onto the game. But that's not the only way the tow truck service makes you money, which brings me to the second way, which is with the passive income. In order to generate any income from the wall safe, you need to complete tow truck missions. It will take 4 vehicles to be salvaged in order to receive the maximum daily income, which is $24,000 every 48 minutes. To maintain your income after the 4 vehicles have been salvaged, simply complete 1 tow truck mission per day, and you can consistently earn $24,000 every hour. It's not a bad way to make money, however, it does require regular attention in order to keep the income up, which depends on if you can be bothered to complete any of the tow truck missions. But that brings me on to the final way and the main way to make money, and that is through the Salvage Yard robberies. These can be started via the planning computer inside your Salvage Yard, and you're going to see 3 available vehicles that you can steal. The basic idea of these robberies is that you can steal a target vehicle, bring it back to the salvage yard, and then deliver it to the docks. The only downside to these missions is that you can only complete 3 of them every week, because they are updated with every weekly update, which is a little annoying. There are 5 different types of vehicle robberies. There's the Duggan robbery, the Gangbanger robbery, the Cargo Ship robbery, Podium robbery, and finally the McTorney robbery. And if you're completing them for the first time, you will have to do a scope out mission. However, every robbery has 2 sets of mandatory planning work, as well as 3 mandatory tasks, which only take around 20 to 30 minutes to do. There is also optional work for tasks and planning, which can have you disrupting equipment or getting masks, but they aren't really necessary. When it comes to the robberies themselves, they are fairly straightforward to do, and like I said, all you'll have to do is steal a target vehicle for that week, and they are a lot of fun to do for your first time playthrough. However, each robbery has a set of challenges that you can complete. If you do, you earn an extra $50,000, which is definitely worth doing. But what about the big money? When you deliver the vehicle to your salvage yard, there are 3 options. The first is selling the vehicle to Yusuf, which gives you the most amount of money, and depending on which vehicles are on that week, you can earn between $200,000 up to $400,000 per vehicle. All you have to do is drop it off to the docks without taking any damage, and there is also a 30-minute timer for this, which is definitely needed if you bought the Palito Bay location. The next option is salvaging the vehicle for parts, which I do not recommend choosing because you earn around 15% less, so always sell the vehicle. And finally, there can sometimes be the option to claim a robbery vehicle as your personal vehicle, which will only cost $20,000 or $10,000 if you own a document forgery office. This claimable vehicle happens every few event weeks, and when it does, you basically get a free vehicle that would usually cost millions, so it's definitely worth claiming one if you want to have the vehicle. So there you have it, that was the Salvage Yard business explained, which brings me on to the newest business in the game, the bail office. Starting with the location, there are a total of 5 locations to choose from on the Maze Bank Foreclosures website. They all range from $1.6 million up to $2.6 million for the most expensive one. And with all of the customizations, you could be spending up to $4.8 million. And speaking of the customizations, there are 5 to choose from, starting with this style, which is completely cosmetic and will not make you more money, but if you want to make your office look better, then definitely go with which one you want to choose. Then there's the personal quarters, which you can obviously choose to spawn into the business whenever you load in a session, which is going to be useful if you want to have it. And then there is the gun locker, which allows you to create your own custom weapon loadout. And again, that's totally up to you. And before I talk about the agent upgrade, let's get into the armor plating. This is for your bail enforcement van that you can use during all of the brand new missions. And this will allow you to add armor plating to it, which is useful for the missions if you want to increase your protection, but you don't have to get this yet, because you can also customize this van inside of the garage in the bail enforcement business. Here you can upgrade its armor plating as well if you don't decide to choose it on the website, and you can also respray the van. Now, what about the money making side of the business? There are 2 ways to make money from it. The first is from passive income. Like I mentioned, for the upgrades you can choose the agents. There are 2 of them available, and they each cost $750,000. And if you get both of them, you're going to be spending $1.5 million. So what exactly do they do? Well, these agents generate you passive income through the safe that is inside your office. If you go over to the agents that are sat at the desks over here, you will have the option to send them on a bail enforcement mission. The cool thing about this is that you can assign both agents on a mission at once. And what they do is go out and complete their bail enforcement work, which usually takes 48 minutes to complete. When they do, Jeanette will contact you letting you know that they have finished their work. And this will add a payment to your office safe that you can collect whenever you want. The payment is different, but from what I can tell, each agent does pay around 5 to 10k per job, and it all goes in your safe for you to collect. All completely passive. However, the next way to make money is from the bounty targets, which is the main source of income for this business. You can find these bounty targets on your computer in your office. You're going to see a list of 4 bounty targets that are available for you to collect. The regular selection of bounty targets, which are highlighted in blue, will change every hour, and if you complete all 3 targets, it will change automatically. These targets will pay between 30 to 40k each. However, you must secure the target and deliver them back to the bail enforcement office to actually receive the full payment. Because if you kill the target, you get a massive reduction in your pay, and you instead have to deliver them to the morgue and not the business. So always secure the target. However, if you do deliver to the morgue, you will receive your payment instantly, which I will talk about in a second. Because the big money making is the most wanted targets, which are highlighted in red. These will change once every real life day, and they will reward the highest amount. The regular bounty targets can be done within free roam sessions, and they only take around 10 minutes to complete, and they are a lot of fun to do. Whereas the most wanted targets are done within a private mission, and they do take a little bit longer to complete. The current target that is active is worth $130,000, and no matter what target you collect, when you deliver them to the business, you do not receive the money instantly, because the targets will have to be processed, which usually takes around 10 minutes. And then after that, you will receive the money. But like I mentioned earlier, if you kill the targets, you will get the money instantly when you deliver them to the morgue. Like I said, the current target is worth $130,000. However, the most wanted targets reset daily, so the value of the target will most likely be increasing, and you will obviously make even more money. This business is great, allowing you to earn some very easy passive income through the agents, as well as generating some very easy money through the bounty targets. You can be looking at making around $110,000 to $120,000 every hour when completing these bounty jobs, depending on the value of the targets, of course. But other than that, that is everything that you need to know about the new bail enforcement business. Which brings me on to the newest business in GTA Online, the garment factory. So first things first, we have the location. There is actually only one location for this business, and it can be found on the Mazebank Foreclosures website, which is going to cost you $2.3 million. And although this does initially seem like a higher upfront cost, the value for money that you're getting for this business is actually insane, because unlike any other property in the game, there are no additional upgrades for you to purchase, which means the $2.3 million that you spend on the business comes with everything. And this includes a sleeping quarters, which allows you to spawn in, which normally you would have to purchase for your other businesses. There is also a 10-car garage space in the basement. This would usually be an upgrade that will cost millions of dollars, and the fact that we get this for free is insane. There is also a Mark II weapon workshop where you can customize all of your weapons, which again would normally be an upgrade for a business. And finally, this business comes with the wall safe. All of these upgrades would normally cost you $5 million plus, but you only pay $2.3 million and you get all of it. This is the best value for money that you could ever get. And speaking of money making, there are two ways you can make money with this business. The first way is through the passive income wall save. Like I mentioned, this isn't an upgrade for the business, it will just be sitting upstairs in the office for you to make some passive income. So how much does it make? Well, this will generate $1.5 to $2,000 every in-game day. Now, the way this will generate money is actually from the garment factory staff. You see the women upstairs making the clothing? Well, that is how the money is going to be added to your safe. Although this is passive income, the only real downside to this is that it's barely any earnings, which makes it one of the worst safes out of any business. But it is still passive income, so you can collect that whenever you want for some extra money. But the main way to make money is through the mini heists, which are called FIB files. These work just like every other robbery that we have seen with the auto shop or the salvage yard, and this is the main way to make money with this business. You can access these FIB files by going to the computer inside of the factory, or you can actually use the new Darnell Inc. app on your phone. This will allow you to access the mission planning screen no matter where you are on the map, which is an insane quality of life update because it saves you so much time. Now, how do these missions work? Well, there are currently 4 missions available. We have the black box file, the brute force file, the fine art file, and the project breakaway file. These all have 3 setup missions that you have to complete, and you can do these in any order that you want before the finale. The base payout for these missions is roughly $150,000, but if you complete all optional objectives, you can get an extra $50,000 on top of that, which makes the total for these missions $200,000 per mission. And for the time that it takes you to complete these, this is a really good way to make money, because if you're an experienced player with a fast vehicle, you can get these done in 20 minutes or less, which means you're making 200k every 20 to 30 minutes. But that is for the regular files, because there is a higher paying file called priority files. These will change once per week with every weekly update, and it will be marked on your computer as priority file, and this will pay double the regular files, which could see you earning $300,000 to $400,000 for these files. Like I said, you can only complete one of them per week, but the other missions, the regular files, can be completed whenever you want, with a short 5-minute cooldown between starting a new one up. But like I mentioned earlier, each mission has optional objectives to earn an extra $50,000. These work exactly like the Salvage Yard robberies, with the additional objectives at the end of the mission. So I'm going to walk you through those now. For the black box file, the objectives include destroying all of the plane engines, which shouldn't be hard to do at all, and recovering all underwater contents. So when you are searching the area of the plane, instead of going straight for the black box, instead search the area for the additional contents and pick those up before collecting the black box. And the final bonus is killing 5 enemies during your escape. Again, this one's fairly straightforward. For the Project Breakaway file, the objectives include reaching the location in 5 minutes, again very easy to do, as well as getting 15 headshots and collecting the optional loot. Just make sure before you get the main targets to go into these separate areas to collect the additional loot. That way you can get this bonus. For the Brute Force file, the objectives are reach the base in 5 minutes, again not hard, and enter it undetected. You should easily be able to do that by stealthily going past the guards. And the final objective is to destroy 5 vehicles during your escape using the Scarab. This one is a little bit more time consuming because the weapons on the Scarab aren't the greatest. So when an enemy gets close, press E on PC to activate the EMP explosion, which is going to damage the vehicle, and then you can try and finish it off with the lasers. But finally, for the Fine Art file, the objectives are completing the mission undetected. That one isn't hard at all. Then flicking the switch within 60 seconds. Again, easy to do, not hard at all. And finally, collect all cabinet contents. This one is simple, just don't go for the main target inside of the cabinet, go for the 2 others on either side and collect those first. Then you can steal the main target. But those are the optional objectives explained, which should earn you an extra 50k on top of your mission. So now let's break down the earnings that you can make from this business. If you complete the FIB files with the optional bonuses, that is going to earn you $200,000. Now, because these missions can take you 30 minutes each, you can complete 2 of them per hour, which means you're going to be making $400,000 per hour. Now, with the weekly priority files, this can be increased to $600,000 per hour, as you can only complete them once per week. So overall, this isn't a bad business at all in terms of profit. Is it the best business in the game? No, not by a long shot, but it is still a great business that puts it on par with other businesses like the auto shop. So stop hating on it, because the money that you make, it isn't great, but it is still pretty decent. But now that we have gone over the income for this business, let's talk about some additional features that come with this property. The first feature is the new fast travel system. You can travel between 5 different locations across Los Santos, and you can do this by going into the basement and accessing this door over here. But what's cool about this is that you can also exit through this way back into the garment factory. This would have been really useful to use during missions, but of course they aren't accessible. So the only use for these is during free mode. And of course, the next main feature with this business is the terabyte upgrades. I've made a separate video breaking down the upgrades already, so go and check that out below. Essentially, you can now store your terabyte inside the garment factory workshop, where you can upgrade it with Bureau tech. This tech is insane, so check out the guide like I said. And a final few details that we have is that you can get snacks for free over at this table, which is pretty useful to have. And you can access the rooftop, where there are new seat locations, which, by the way, if you sit down on them, you can access a cinematic camera which looks over the city and gives you a nice view. This is really cool. There is also a couple Easter eggs which some of you might not have noticed, because when you buy the business, Lester is going to contact you with an email, because if you didn't already know, this used to be his main business during story mode and even with the online heist. That is a really cool detail. But it doesn't stop there, because if you go down to the garage, you're going to see clothing from the jewel store heist in GTA 5, which is really cool. Also, every time you complete an FIB file, you're going to get these trophies on your desk. Currently, there are only 4 files in the game, so these are all of the trophies that you can expect to get. But with that being said, that was the garment factory explained. Again, this isn't the best business in any way, but $400,000 to $600,000 per hour is really good and makes it a decent business to use. The best thing about this business, in my opinion, is the setup cost, because you do not have to buy any upgrades and you get access to a great money-making business. How could you not want that? However, the passive income is some of the worst in the game, but honestly, it's not that deep because it's just a bit of extra income on the side, as long as the robberies are paying good. But with all that being said, that was the garment factory explained. Now that leaves us with the heist properties, starting with the high-end apartments, which are some of the oldest properties in the game, and they allow you to start up the OG heists. You can purchase the high-end apartments from the Dynasty 8 website, and these range from $200,000 all the way up to $1.1 million. However, the location of the apartments does not matter, and unless you want a luxury one, you only ever need the cheapest option, which can cost between $200,000 to $400,000. When you have purchased an apartment, you can begin the OG heists by visiting Leicester, which you can do by heading to this L near the police station. This will introduce you to the heists, which you can start and set up from inside the planning room in your apartment. The OG heist consists of 5 different ones, which start from the Fleeca job and end with the Pacific Standard heist. These all pay out different amounts and all require 4 players to complete them, except for the first, the Fleeca job, which only requires 2 players. When completing all 5 heists on hard mode, you can expect to walk away with around $1.2 million when split evenly between 4 players, or you can earn around $2 million on the higher end. It all just depends on the cut that you're receiving. These heists were great when they released, making some of the best money in the game. But for the 2024 standard, $2 million from 5 heists is terrible, especially for the time that you put into it. Setting up all 5 heists can be a massive pain, taking up to 6 or even 7 hours to do, which totally depends on the team that you are playing them with. These heists are not good for GTA Online's current meta. I only recommend completing them if you really want to try them out, because they are great for a first time playthrough, but nothing else. One more thing to mention is that you can earn up to $12 million from these heists, and that is by completing the Criminal Mastermind Challenge, which is by far the most difficult achievement to unlock. You have to complete all heist setups and finales in order and on hard difficulty with the same team and without losing any lives, which will give you a $10 million bonus. This is a very difficult task to achieve, and you will need a solid team of players to help you, but if you do manage to pull it off, you definitely are rewarded. But that is the high-end apartments explained. The next heist property is the arcade, which was introduced as the main heist property for the Diamond Casino heist, and there are 6 different locations to choose from. These range from $1.2 million and go up to $2.5 million. I highly recommend avoiding these top 2 locations, because you're going to be wasting a lot of time if you buy them, because almost every casino heist prep takes place closer to the city, which is why you only want to buy any of these 4 locations. They are all within the perfect distance when it comes to setting up the heist. And speaking of, like I mentioned, the main way to make money is through the casino heist, which you can start up by visiting Leicester near the casino, which will walk you through the basic plan of the heist. After this cutscene, you can begin setting it up inside your arcade. The casino heist is one of the most underrated moneymakers as of 2024 because of the Cayo Perico heist. However, the casino heist is just as good, if not better. The main reason people underestimate the casino heist is because it requires 2 players compared to the solo meta of Cayo Perico. But even with 2 players, you can make just as much money from this heist. But just because the finale requires 2 people does not mean the setups do, as you can complete all of the preps as a solo player in less than 1 hour, meaning all you need to do is invite a friend for the finale. And when it comes to the finale, there are 3 different approaches. There's stealth, the big con, and aggressive. And depending on what loot you get, as well as the cut that you are taking, which realistically you should be taking 80% as a leader, considering you did all the preps yourself, then you can earn around $1.5 million to $1.6 million, which makes this one of the best ways to make money. But the casino heist isn't the only way the arcade makes money, because there is also passive income. In order to make the maximum amount of daily income through the wall safe, which is $5,000, all you need to do is purchase a few arcade machines from your arcade computer and then place them within all of the slots in your arcade. This way you consistently earn 5k per hour for doing nothing, which isn't too bad. But that's not all, because on the computer you can also purchase the Master Control Terminal for $1.7 million, which is one of the most useful purchases you can ever make. This thing allows you to manage all of your businesses from the comfort of the arcade. On here you can run basically every business, which includes the MC businesses, the bunker, the nightclub, and your warehouses. You can even resupply them from this location, which means you don't have to fly out to every single business to manage them. You can save so much time by doing it all from here. This thing is one of the biggest time savers and is very useful to have. Which brings me on to the next heist property, and that's the facility, which lets you start up the Doomsday Heist. You can purchase a facility from Mazebank foreclosures, and these range from $1.2 million all the way up to $2.9 million. And when it comes to the location, I highly recommend going for a facility that is closest to the city, because every act of this heist has a lot of setups and almost all of them take place within the city. So definitely do not go for any at the top of the map. As for the upgrades themselves, they are fairly useless, but you can of course have the option to add an orbital cannon for $900,000. And if that's worth spending $500,000 for every shot that you take, then be my guest. The rest of the upgrades aren't that important, however. The facility also comes with garage space, allowing you to store up to 7 vehicles, as well as having dedicated spaces for the Avenger and the jetpack, which is a nice bonus. But that leads me on to the heists. Like I mentioned, there are 3 different heists in total. The first is data breaches, which has a max payout of $1.2 million on hard mode. Then there's the Bogdan problem, which pays out $1.78 million on hard mode. And finally, there's the Doomsday scenario, which pays $2.25 million. Unlike the OG heist, you can actually complete all 3 acts with just 2 players. And if you decide to do this, you could earn around $2.6 million if you have a 50-50 cut. This will of course go down the more players that you decide to do the heist with. Now this pay may seem decent, however the time in which it takes to set up these heists is painfully long, and in my opinion makes the Doomsday Heist some of the worst in the game, because for each act you need to complete a prep mission for the setup missions, and for Act 1 there are 6 total missions that you need to do, Act 2 there are 9 missions, and Act 3 has 11 missions. But these aren't just your typical heist setups, they are some of the hardest and longest missions in the game. Pause. Altogether, you could be spending between 6 to 8 hours completing all 3 heists, and the money that you receive for doing this is totally not worth it. But with that being said, that was the facility explained, which brings me on to the newest business in the game, which is the Mkenzie Hangar. Now there are 2 ways that you can purchase this. It's going to be on your map at the top of Blaine County, and you can go ahead and travel to that hangar spot and purchase it right there, or you can just go to Mazebank foreclosures and purchase it from the one location on the map. This will cost you $1.4 million, and there are no upgrades to this business at all. So after you have purchased it, Oscar is going to give you a phone call asking you to visit the new business to begin the DLC. So just do exactly that and head over to the new hangar. Now there are 2 ways to make money with this business. The first way is through the arms trafficking missions for Oscar Guzman. If you head over to the computer, you can request work for Oscar, and this is going to send you out on a quick mission where you're either going to drop off supplies or steal them, and this will always get you $50,000. So it's a cool way to pass the time between the main Oscar Guzman missions, which make you the most money. And you can also unlock an aircraft for completing one of these missions. But on the topic of aircrafts, you can actually access your own personal aircrafts inside of the Mkenzie Hangar. Just go over to this panel and you'll be able to access all of your owned aircrafts and request them in, which is a nice option for some extra storage for your aircrafts if you can no longer fit them inside of your hangar. But with that being said, the main way to make money with the Mkenzie Hangar is through the Oscar Guzman flies again, 10 missions, which can earn you $750,000 per hour. Before we get started with the guide though, let's talk about the basics of these missions. What is the payout for them? Well, if you complete these missions for the very first time, you're only able to do them on normal mode, which is going to get you $500,000. However, replaying the missions after your first time allows you to put it on hard mode, which is what you want to do every single time you play them, because you will instead get $750,000, which is a lot better and a lot more money. So once you complete the first playthrough, always play on hard mode after that. Now, something to mention is that you can actually get $40,000 as a bonus reward on top of the $750,000, which means you earn $810,000 in total for the finale. Now, the way you actually get this bonus reward is by collecting bonus objectives during these setups. So during these setup for the mogul plane, you will be able to collect a second mogul as part of that setup. If you do that, that will count towards the bonus for the finale. Again, for the Iron Mule setup, there will be 4 extra bonus objectives for you to collect. This includes 3 extra Iron Mules plus an Insurgent Pickup Custom. So if you collect all of those, that will also count towards the bonus reward. And finally, for the ammunition setup, there is 3 extra objectives to collect, which include the mogul equipment upgrades, some armor upgrades, and weapon upgrades. And those will all count towards the bonus rewards, which for $40,000, this is in my opinion completely pointless to do, because collecting all of these during the setups wastes a lot of time, let me tell you that. So don't bother doing this for the extra $40,000 unless you really want to, because they do offer a little bit of an advantage during the finale, especially collecting the extra equipment and armor for the ammunition setup, which can come in handy very well for the finale. So if you want that extra protection, get it. And also, the interesting thing about this is that during your replay of these missions, you don't actually have to go through and get everything again for the bonus reward, because once you get them, you can still use them in your finale even if you didn't collect them in these setups. As long as you've already done them once, you'll get the bonus reward and you'll be able to still use them in the finale, which is pretty interesting. I'm not too sure if that's a bug, but you may as well do them once and get the bonus every single time if you want to. But now let's go over the actual missions themselves, and I'll walk you through the best ways to complete them. Firstly, I highly recommend using the Hakatui drag for these setup missions, which does come with an HSW upgrade, which is now obviously available on PC. And you can use the free upgrade from HSW to use on the Hakatui drag. So definitely do that, it's going to speed these missions up a lot. Plus, using the Armored Kuruma for one of these setup missions is going to be very helpful, but we'll go over that later on. The first setup mission that you always have to complete is Up and Running. This will lock all of the other setups until you complete this one. And it's pretty straightforward to do, it only takes 5 minutes. When the mission starts, just hop onto your bike, which should just be on the road over here. Then you can start driving towards the yellow checkpoint. Instead of having to drive up the mountain trail like the game tells you to do, you do not have to waste all that time doing that. Instead, you can just drive down onto the highway over here, and I personally recommend using the Sniper Mark II, especially with explosive rounds. But if you don't have explosive rounds, don't worry, you can still use the Sniper Mark II, or you can also use a homing launcher. But when you're on the road, just aim up towards the signal tower, which you should get a clear line of sight from the highway, and just shoot a few times with explosive rounds to take it down, and this will still count towards the progress of the mission, and you've just saved a ton of time without having to travel up the mountain. And now the plane should start spawning for you, and all you have to do is equip a drive-by weapon that you want and just start shooting at the plane. It's pretty straightforward. Every single time you shoot, the health is going to drop and he's going to drop the packages. So when he does, just keep driving underneath the plane while shooting at it and collect the packages at the same time, and pretty quickly you should have all 4 packages without the plane diverting from the highway. And at that point, with all 4 packages collected, just drive to the final drop-off location, and that mission is pretty much done. It's very straightforward to do. And now we can move on to the rest of the setup missions, starting with the Mogul setup. When you first start this mission, you're going to have two options available. You can either use the Velan plane to fly to the airstrip location, or I personally recommend using your Hawk to a drag, because you can easily get to the location a lot faster than using the Velan plane. And it may not seem like it's faster, but with the HSW upgrades, you're going to save around 1 minute more. So definitely try that out. But if you struggle with driving and you just don't trust yourself that much, then just use the Velan plane. And when you actually get to the location, you don't have to break stealth at all. In fact, breaking stealth is probably much more riskier, and you probably end up getting shot and killed by all the enemies. So when you get to this location, just shoot the one guard standing at the Mogul with a suppressed weapon, and then you can just jump into the plane and fly off the airstrip. That's pretty straightforward. As long as you have full health and full armor, none of the enemies should kill you at this point. And now it's time to evade the enemy jets. This is really simple. I did overcomplicate it during my first playthrough. I did get blown up once, I will admit. But luckily for us, the Mogul has flares. All you have to do is wait for the sound of the lock-on and just keep on shooting out the flares, and you will never get blown up. You will never even get hit by any of the rockets. It's pretty straightforward. Just keep flying over to the Mkenzie Hangar, where Oscar is going to shoot down the jets for you. Like I said, keep using the flares and you'll be fine on your way there. But once you get inside of the circle where Oscar Guzman is, he will easily take care of the jets for you, and you don't have to worry about that. But the mission isn't done yet, because you now have to go to these red dots on your map and destroy the rest of the camps. So this is pretty straightforward again. Just activate the trapdoors before you get to these locations by holding down the button on your console. And I do recommend using the carpet bomb option, because it's just going to be faster and it avoids missing any shots if you just use a single bomb. So when you get to these locations, wait till you're roughly a few meters away and just start dropping the bombs down. You shouldn't really miss these. It's pretty easy to hit the targets, and there are 5 targets in total, so just make your way around and destroy all of those camps. It's pretty straightforward. And then just fly back to the hangar, and that mission is complete. The next setup mission, however, is Intel. Now this is a long and tedious mission, but it should only take 10 minutes or less to do. And before you start this mission, I do recommend buying some scuba gear and equipping it as an outfit, because it will make this mission faster for you. So hop on your bike when the mission starts and head over to the drone station and park up your bike at this point so that you can easily leave and hop on it once this part is ended. Hop into the drone station, go onto the drone and start controlling it. Now here there is going to be 4 different servers for you to hack, and you're going to spawn decently far away from them, so just use the boost feature on the drone to get there a lot faster. Now the thing I've learned throughout this mission is that the drone is extremely fragile, so any tiny maneuvers that you make with this drone, whether that's hitting a fraction of a molecule of air, it's going to blow up. So be careful with that, because this could waste time that we don't really want to waste. So head over to the first server, which is going to be in this building. You can literally just go in through the roof by descending down through these holes inside the roof, and make sure you're staring at the server. You have to be in direct sight of it in order for it to start hacking. But again, don't get too close to it, because the drone will blow up. It's happened to me a few times, so just be careful with that. Once the first server is hacked, just move on over to the next one. And for this mission, if you do end up breaking stealth, it's honestly no problem at all, because you can just shoot the guards with the machine guns on the drone, and you shouldn't really find any problems with that. So just fly around, use the boost to help you along the way, but do not use the boost while inside enclosed spaces, because this is very risky and you could end up just blowing up your drone, so be careful of that. But once all 4 servers are hacked, just instantly exit the drone and you will spawn back at the drone station. And now we just have to exit and head on over to the lighthouse to start scavenging for the cargo. When you get here, there are going to be some guards, but we can actually just avoid them completely by driving around the back of the house and going down the stairs with our bike. Now you will still be in stealth at this point, so just shoot the 2 guards at the docks and hop onto the jet ski and make your way over to the area. Once you get here, just swim straight down towards the shipwreck, and although there are sharks around this area, as long as you don't go straight directly up to them, they won't bother you, so don't worry about that. And just swim straight down to the shipwreck. Now there's going to be 4 different cargoes for you to pick up, and they will always be in a very similar spot. Just pay attention to any bits of debris on the floor, because that is where most of the cargo is just going to be laying around. Now, if you swim close enough to them, they will appear on your minimap with a green dot, so be on the lookout for that as well. But on screen now, I'm showing you where all of these cargoes are roughly located. 2 of them are always going to be at this area near the shipwreck, and the rest of them will either be in one of these 2 containers, or they're going to be further back towards the rock face of the shipwreck. So just go around, scavenge those parts, and here's where you waste a lot of time, because you will have to swim back to the lighthouse, which takes a serious amount of time, or you can use a bit of a risky strat and swim up to the surface where the patrolling boats are going to be, because then you can just take out one of the drivers if you are lucky enough to get a good chance. Take out the driver and then just drive their boat back towards this area near the lighthouse, and then you can just request your vehicle and deliver the parts back to the hangar. That mission is pretty straightforward, just a little bit tedious, which is the pattern for these missions. The next tedious mission to complete is the Iron Mule setup. Now here's where the Armored Kuruma is going to be very useful. So before this mission starts, just request the Armored Kuruma and you can use it for this mission. So just drive over to the checkpoint, and when you get towards the area, your main objective is to just plant the jammers. Now don't focus too much on most of the enemies, because they will just waste time if you keep focusing on them and shooting them, because they are just going to respawn anywhere. So just shoot a few of the enemies that may be around where you need to plant the jammers, and do exactly that. Just get out of the car, plant the jammers, and make your way around to all of the areas and plant the jammers as quick as you can. However, when it comes to the enemies over at this section, you want to focus on the Insurgent Pickup Custom, because he will shred through you and most likely kill you, so you don't want to risk that. Take him out, as well as the enemies around there, and plant the jammers. Now after you plant the jammers, you now have to destroy the assets. This one is pretty straightforward. You will have a bar showing how many assets you have destroyed, and that will go up or down depending on how many assets you're taking out. And if you just focus on the helicopters that come after you as the assets, it's going to take forever, because they take around 30 seconds each to spawn. So what you want to do is, around the construction areas, you're going to see oil tanks and crates, as well as scientists and vehicles. So just focus on using sticky bombs to blow all of those up, and they will count towards the meter. Any of the helicopters that spawn, take them down as well, and you should very quickly get that meter filled up, and the Iron Mules will start to spawn in. And when they do, just activate the jammers and wait for the Iron Mule to just land wherever you are. And there will be the pilots and a few other enemies around there, so just take them out before hopping into the Iron Mule. Don't forget to deactivate the jammers before taking off, and then just deliver the Iron Mule back to the hangar, and that mission is complete in, yet again, 10 minutes or less. Not that difficult at all. Which now brings us on to the final setup mission, which is ammunition. This one is by far the quickest setup mission to complete, and it shouldn't be that difficult whatsoever. So when you load into the mission, you will have to get into the Velum with Oscar, and this is where time is kind of wasted, because you have to wait for him to fly to the destination, and there's nothing you can do until he gets there. So just wait till the Velum gets over this bridge area, and then you can just dive directly out of the plane and straight down towards the Iron Mule. And at this point, all you have to do is fly out towards the cargo ship and collect the ammunition. Now, some people may struggle with this a little bit, because I know the controls are a little annoying when it comes to the hook on the helicopter, but if you just take advantage of the hook camera, and when you get towards the ship, just make sure to position yourself right above it, use the hook camera if you need to, and you should easily be able to pick up the ammunition and take off with it to deliver it back to the area. But also, one thing to keep in mind is that the containers around your main objective of collecting the ammunition, the hook on the Iron Mule can actually pick those containers up. So if that does happen, just hold the release button and just try and focus on collecting the ammunition package, because it is a little bit annoying. It does take some time to get used to, but you should easily be able to pick up the ammunition after a couple tries, and it shouldn't take you too long to deliver it back to the main area. And with that, the ammunition mission is complete, and we can now move on to the Titan job finale. Now this is where things start to get very tedious and boring, I won't lie to you. So when you you start this mission, you are going to have to get into the mogul with Oscar. And at this point, Oscar's the one in control. All he's going to do is fly you around to the Titan, where it's your job to just keep on shooting the Titan. That is it. You don't have to focus on any other enemies, although the helicopters will spawn in and the jets will spawn in and they will shoot at Oscar's mogul. Plus, you also have the missiles from the submarine. But trust me, your main objective is to just keep on focusing on the Titan at all times, because no matter what, the helicopters, the jets, and the missiles, even if they do hit Oscar's mogul, it will not be able to destroy it by the time you have destroyed the Titan. So just focus directly on the Titan itself. Don't bother trying to shoot down the helicopters or the missiles, because it just wastes time and there's no point. So after about 5 minutes of just constantly firing at the Titan, at this point over here towards the observatory, the Titan should go down. And that's the boring and annoying part of the mission done. And when you get towards the drop site, before jumping out, if there are any helicopters nearby, just shoot them down using the weapons on the mogul, just so you have less enemies to deal with before you land. But after that, just jump out of the mogul and land as close as you can to the Titan, so you can get enough cover from all of the enemy gunfire. Because trust me, these guys are kind of annoying, I won't lie. There is a lot of enemies down here. You barely have any cover, but you should be good enough to just take them out, use the ammo that you have, and if you do have the weapons upgrade from your setups, this will come in handy because you have a lot better weapons to use, and you should just be able to take down a few targets before repairing the engine using this mini game. Now the mini game is pretty straightforward. You just spam the keys that the game tells you to, and you should easily be able to get this done. Just make sure to focus on your health and ammo, and if you do see it dropping slightly, don't worry, just exit the mini game, heal up, take out the enemies that are bothering you, get back to the mini game, and you should be able to finish the engine in a pretty short amount of time. And at that point, you just have to wait now for Oscar to drop the ammunition package. And although you don't have much cover to work with, I know it's annoying, but just take out as many enemies around you as possible and try and fend them off before Oscar drops the ammunition. And the annoying part about this is, once he does drop them off, you are going to spawn a little far away from the Titan. It's just the game trying to get you to fight more enemies and really just get in the way. But take out the enemies that are bothering you. This is pretty straightforward. Once you get to the ammunition package, there's going to be another quick action game that you have to do, where you just spam the key and load the ammunition into the Titan. Again, this is pretty straightforward. Just keep on spamming that button until the bar is filled up. And if your health or armor does drop, just refill and continue until you have filled up the bar. And when it is filled up, just spam the enter button for the Titan so you can get out of the line of fire so you don't end up dying. And now you can set off into the air to finish the rest of the objectives. This is where you have to destroy 3 main targets. The first ones are going to be the mobile operation centers. And as a solo player, this can be a little tricky to figure out, but the Titan's guns are pretty straightforward to use. When you get to a certain point, make sure you are always facing the right side of the enemies so that you can actually use the guns and take them out. So when you get close enough, hold down the altitude button so that you can go into the camera mode, and then this should only take 2 shots from your weapons to shoot each of the targets. Don't forget that as a solo player, the Titan's weapons only have 5 cannons, so don't forget to reload after every main target has been taken down. So once the mobile operation centers have been done, exit the weapon camera. And for some very strange reason, Rockstar decided to make this the same button as exiting the aircraft. So make sure you do not press this button twice to accidentally fall out of the aircraft and completely fail the mission. Now here's a problem with this, because there is also a bug with this mission, because even though I pressed the F button once to exit the camera of the gun, I still got kicked out of the plane and it completely ruined a perfect run of this mission. So just be careful with this if you have that problem, because it is a bit annoying. But the next target is going to be the submarine. This one will actually take 6 shots to take down, but you only have 5 cannons available at once. So line yourself up perfectly with the Kosatka and go into the camera. Make sure you hit every target with the 5 missiles, and as it's reloading, if you are lucky enough, you might be able to get your final shot after it's reloaded onto the Kosatka to blow it up. But if not, don't worry, just circle back and finish off the Kosatka. And the final target to take down is going to be the train. So just head over to this area. Now the problem with this, it's a lot less open at this point. There are mountains, there's the wind farm, and there's also some electrical points. So you want to be careful to stay high enough to not hit those, but also not too high where you can no longer get the cannons to actually hit the targets. But for the train, the problem is you will have to do several rounds of turning back and forth in order to actually destroy the whole thing, because it will take more than 5 shots and a lot of reloading to get this thing destroyed. But firstly, just take out the train cab so that the train actually stops and you don't have to bother following it around and potentially missing your shots. And after that, you can just easily destroy the rest of the cargo and the train should be taken down without a problem. And that is all of the objectives for the finale done. And once the train's destroyed, you can fly back to the hangar and complete the mission. And that will be all of the Oscar Guzman setups and finale complete in less than 1 hour. And that leads me on to the final business on this list, the Kosatka submarine. It's technically a vehicle, however, it does allow you to start up the Cayo Perico heist, which is still to this day the king of moneymakers and the best heist in the game, no matter how many times Rockstar tries to nerf it. Before we get into the heist itself, the Kosatka can be purchased from Warstock for a base price of $2.2 million. And it comes with some very useful upgrades, such as adding a sonar station, guided missiles, a weapon workshop, and best of all, moon pool vehicles, which is where you can purchase the Sparrow helicopter, which is going to make your life so much easier. It's one of the fastest aircrafts in the game, allowing you to grind the setups of the Cayo Perico heist in less than 30 minutes. And speaking of the heist, to begin setting it up, you will need to visit the music locker to get introduced to the heist. This is a long cutscene, but after you've done that, you can start making millions. For a first time playthrough, I recommend just enjoying the heist and everything it has to offer, because you will get sick of it very fast. Trust me, this heist will stay in your grinding routine for years to come. Like I mentioned, the heist setups can be done in less than 30 minutes when using the Sparrow. This is by far the fastest heist to set up. And when it comes to the finale, it can also be done in just under 10 minutes. And depending on your secondary and primary targets, you can earn anywhere from $1.2 million to $1.6 million per hour, which still makes it the best way to make money in GTA Online, compared to all of the other businesses that I have explained in this video. The only downside to this heist is its cooldown, because as a solo player, there will be a 2.5 hour cooldown before you can start up another. However, this is reduced to 48 minutes if you play as a group. It is definitely a small downside for solo players, but this is still the best heist in the game. And with all that being said, that is every business in GTA Online explained in almost 2 hours, which is insane. I hope this video did help you guys out. It has been a long time in the making, so if it did, subscribe and drop a like on it, and I'll see you all in the next one.